There is a certain urgency to the readings this weekend, an urgency to bring ourselves and others into the presence of God's mercy. But there is one major hang-up, our extreme sense of justice. St. Francis de Sales said, "You cannot have two scales, justice for everyone else, and mercy for yourself." This was the hang-up of the world's most reluctant prophet of mercy, Jonah. Tradition holds that Jonah was the disciple of the famous prophet of mercy, Elisha. And before God could even finish asking Jonah to carry a message of mercy to Israel's enemy, the Assyrians, Jonah runs away. In fact, God asked Jonah to go to Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. But Jonah stubbornly boarded a ship in the opposite direction to Tarshish, the farthest corner of the known world. The irony is, Jonah stubbornly will not carry out God's will of delivering his message of mercy to those he deems unworthy to receive it. But the pagan sailors, the sea, a big fish, the Ninevites, a plant, and even a worm will follow God's direction. Jonah is disappointed in the end because God withholds punishment from Nineveh after they repent. Like Jonah, our extreme sense of justice towards others is disappointed in God's mercy that is downright scandalous, outrageous, and yet transformative. Quite frankly, God's mercy on display in the Bible is not fair. So let's examine it. Mercy, we must remember, is the act of God entering into our misery and delivering us from it. Besides, St. Vincent de Paul asked, "For what hope is there for us if God should withdraw his mercy from us?" To examine the scandal of his mercy, we turn to the story of the prodigal son. The youngest son hopes his dad dies and selfishly demands his share of the estate. He quickly squanders all of it through his own fault and is led back home by his hungry belly more than his conscience. The older son, who remained faithful, protests his father's lavish welcome and forgiveness of the prodigal son. The father's mercy is not fair or just, and seems so downright scandalous to the older son, and he refuses to participate. The outrageous nature of God's mercy is on display in the parable of the talents, which was a lesson from St. Peter, who asked Jesus how many times he had to forgive. The servant owes an unheard of debt, equaling 150,000 years of labor, and laughingly promises to repay it. When his debt is forgiven, he turns around and will not forgive his fellow servant, who owes a debt worth just 100 days of labor. You see, God's mercy is outrageous because it can forgive anything, but we are reluctant. Lastly, God's transformative mercy is on display when the adulterous woman washes Jesus' feet with her tears and anoints them with costly oil. The Lord's point to those gathered is when his mercy is so generously given, it is meant to bring us to conversion. The person forgiven much also loves much. Again, St. Francis de Sales was correct. God's scandalous, outrageous, and transformative mercy is what we want for ourselves, but not for others. But God's rationale is to fill us with his mercy, so that we are not reluctant prophets and distributors of his mercy like Jonah. For St. Leonard of the Port of Maurice said, "If the Lord at the moment of my death reproves me for being too kind to sinners, I will simply answer, 'My dear Jesus, if it is a fault to be too kind to sinners, it is a fault that I learned from you. For you never scolded anyone who came to you seeking mercy.'" It took a violent storm at sea and being swallowed by a big fish for Jonah to be a bearer of God's mercy. In our own spiritual life, it should only take a reflection on how often God has generously given mercy to us. For St. Vincent de Paul wisely recommended, always turn your eyes from the study of your own sin to the contemplation of God's mercy. Devote much more thought to the grandeur of his love for you, than to your unworthiness towards him, to his strength than to your weakness. When you have done this, surrender yourself into God's arms, in the hope that he will make you what he requires you to be, and that he will bless all that you do.